I was in the backyard of Graceland. A large fountain gurgled nearby, ringed by grave markers. One had a glass-encased flame at the top and was heaped with flowers. I took a wild guess. It must be Elvis's. A magician's tomb. Of course. We'd been searching the house, but the item of power would be at his gravesite. But what exactly was the item? Before I could approach the grave, the door burst open. The big, bold man with the straggly beard stumbled out. A tattered Elvis suit had its sleeves wrapped round his neck like it was getting a piggyback ride. Well, well, the magician threw off the jumpsuit. His voice confirmed for me that he was the one called Jared. You're just a little girl. You've caused us a lot of trouble, Missy. He lowered his staff and fired a shot of green light. I raised my wand and deflected the bolt of energy straight up. I heard a surprised coo, the cry of a pigeon, and a newly made lizard fell out of the sky at my feet. Sorry, I told it. Jared snarled and threw down his staff. Apparently he specialised in lizards, because the staff morphed into a Komodo dragon the size of a London taxicab. The monster charged me with unnatural speed. It opened its jaws and would have bit me in half, but I just had time to wedge my staff in its mouth. Jared laughed. Nice try, girl. I felt the dragon's jaws pressing on the staff. It was only a matter of seconds before the wood snapped, and then I'd be a Komodo dragon's snack. A little help, I told Isis. Carefully, very carefully, I tapped into her strength. Doing so without letting her take over was like riding a surfboard over a tidal wave, trying desperately to stay on my feet. I felt 5,000 years of experience, knowledge and power course through me. She offered me options, and I selected the simplest. I channeled power through my staff and felt it grow hot in my hands, glowing white. The dragon hissed and gurgled as my staff elongated, forcing the creature's jaws open wider, wider, and then, boom! The dragon shattered into kindling, and sent the splintered remains of Jared's staff remaining down around me. Jared had only a moment to look stunned before I threw my wand and whapped him solidly on the forehead. His eyes crossed and he collapsed on the pavement. My wand returned to my hand. That would have been a lovely, happy ending, except I'd forgotten about Wayne. The cowboy-hatted magician stumbled out of the door, almost tripping over his friend, but he recovered with lightning speed. He shouted, "Wind!" and my staff flew out of my hands and into his. He smiled cruelly. Well thought, darling, but elemental magic is always quickest. He struck the ends of both staffs, his and mine, against the pavement. A wave rippled over the dirt and pavement as if the ground had become liquid, knocking me off my feet and sending my wand flying. I scrambled backwards on hands and knees, but I could hear Wayne chanting, summoning fire from the staffs. Rope, Isis said. Every magician carries rope. Panic had made my mind go blank, but my hand instinctively went for my magic bag. I pulled out a small bit of twine, hardly a rope, but it triggered a memory, something Zia had done in the New York Museum. I threw the twine at Wayne and yelled a word Isis suggested. Tas. A golden hieroglyph burned in the air over Wayne's head. The twine whipped towards him like an angry snake, growing longer and thicker as it flew. Wayne's eyes widened. He stumbled back and sent jets of flame shooting from both staffs, but the rope was too quick. It lashed round his ankles and toppled him sideways, wrapping round his whole body until he was encased in a cocoon from chin to toes. He struggled and screamed and called me quite a few unflattering names. I got up unsteadily. Jared was still out cold. I retrieved my staff, which had fallen next to Wayne. He continued straining against the rope and cursing in Egyptian, which sounded strange with an American southern accent. Finish him, Isis warned. He can still speak. We'll not rest until he destroys you. Fire! Wayne screamed. Water! Cheese! Even the cheese command did not work. I reckoned his rage was throwing his magic off balance, making it impossible to focus, but I knew he would recover soon. Silence, I said. Wayne's voice abruptly stopped working. He kept screaming, but no sound came out. I'm not your enemy, I told him, but I can't have you killing me either. Something wriggled in my pocket, and I remembered Carter. I took him out. He looked okay, except, of course, for the fact he was still a lizard. "I'll try to change you back," I told him. "Hopefully I don't make things worse." He made a little croak that didn't convey much confidence. I closed my eyes and imagined Carter as he should be, a tall boy of 14, badly dressed, very human, very annoying. Carter began to feel heavy in my hands. I put him down and watched as the lizard grew into a vaguely human blob. By the count of 3, my brother was lying on his stomach, his sword and pack next to him on the lawn. He spat grass out of his mouth. "How'd you do that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "You just seemed wrong." "Thanks a lot." He got up and checked to make sure he had all his fingers. Then he saw the 2 magicians and his mouth fell open. "What did you do to them?" "Just tied one up, knocked one out. Magic." "No, I mean—" He faltered, searching for words, then gave up and pointed. I looked at the magicians and yelped. Wayne wasn't moving. His eyes and mouth were open, but he wasn't blinking or breathing. Next to him, Jared looked just as frozen. As we watched, their mouths began to glow as if they'd swallowed matches. 2 tiny yellow orbs of fire popped out from between their lips and shot into the air, disappearing in the sunlight. What was that?" I asked. "Are they dead?" Carter approached him cautiously and put his hand on Wayne's neck. "It doesn't even feel like skin, more like rock." "No, they were human. I didn't turn them to rock." Carter felt Gerard's forehead, where I'd whacked him with my wand. "It's cracked." "What?" Carter picked up his sword. Before I could even scream, he brought the hilt down on Gerard's face, and the magician's head cracked into shards like a flower pot. "They're made out of clay," Carter said. "They're both Shapti." He kicked Wayne's arm, and I heard it crunch under the twine. "But they were casting spells," I said, "and talking. They were real." As we watched, the Shapti crumbled to dust, leaving nothing behind but my bit of twine, 2 staffs and some grungy clothes. "Thoth was testing us," Carter guessed. "Those balls of fire, though." He frowned as if trying to recall something important. "Probably the magic that animated them," I guessed, "flying back to their master, like a recording of what they did." It sounded like a solid theory to me, but Carter seemed awfully troubled. He pointed to the blasted back door of Graceland. "Is the whole house like that?" "Worse." I looked at the ruined Elvis jumpsuit under Gerard's clothes and scattered rhinestones. Maybe Elvis had no taste, but I still felt bad about trashing the king's palace. If the palace had been important to Dad, suddenly an idea perked me up. "What was it Amos said when he repaired that saucer?" Carter frowned. "This is a whole house, Sadie, not a saucer." "Got it," I said. "Hainem." A gold hieroglyphic symbol flickered to life in my palm. I held it up and blew it towards the house. The entire outline of Graceland began to glow. The pieces of the door flew back into place and mended themselves. The tattered bits of Elvis clothing disappeared. "Wow," Carter said. "Do you think the inside is fixed too?" My vision blurred and my knees buckled. I would have knocked my head on the pavement if Carter hadn't caught me. "It's okay," he said. "You did a lot of magic, Sadie. That was amazing." "But we haven't even found the item Thoth sent us for." "Yeah," Carter said. "Maybe we have." He pointed to Elvis's grave, and I saw it clearly, a memento left behind by some adoring fan, a necklace with a silver loop topped cross, just like the one on Mum's t-shirt in my old photograph. "An ankh," I said. "The Egyptian symbol for eternal life." Carter picked it up. There was a small papyrus scroll attached to the chain. "What's this?" he murmured, and unrolled the sheet. He stared at it so hard I thought he'd burn a hole in it. "What?" I looked over his shoulder. The painting looked quite ancient. It showed a golden spotted cat holding a knife in one paw and chopping the head off a snake. Beneath it, in black marker, someone had written, "Keep up the fight." "That's vandalism, isn't it?" I asked, marking up an ancient drawing like that. Rather an odd thing to leave for Elvis. Carter didn't seem to hear. "I've seen this picture before. It's in a lot of tombs. Don't know why it never occurred to me." I studied the picture more closely. Something about it did seem rather familiar. You know what it means? I asked. It's the cat of Ra fighting the sun god's main enemy, Apophis. The snake, I said. Yeah, Apophis was. The embodiment of chaos, I said, remembering what Nut had said. Carter looked impressed. As well, he should have. Exactly. Apophis was even worse than Set. The Egyptians thought doomsday would come when Apophis ate the sun and destroyed all of creation. But the cat killed it, I said hopefully. The cat had to kill it over and over again, Carter said. Like what Thoth said about repeating patterns. The thing is, I asked Dad one time if the cat had a name, and he said nobody knows for sure, but most people assume it's Sekhmet, the fierce lion goddess. She was called the Eye of Ra because she did his dirty work. He saw an enemy, she killed it. Fine, so the cat doesn't look like Sekhmet. It just occurred to me. I finally saw it, and a shiver went down my back. The cat of Ra looks exactly like Muffin. It's Bast. Just then the ground rumbled, the memorial fountain began to glow, and a dark doorway opened. Come on, I said, I've got some questions for Thoth, and then I'm going to punch him in the beak. 25. We win an all-expenses-paid trip to death. Being turned into a lizard can really mess up your day. As we stepped through the doorway, I tried to hide it, but I was feeling pretty bad. You're probably thinking, hey, you already turned into a falcon, what's the big deal? But someone else forcing you into another form, that's totally different. Imagine yourself in a trash compactor, your entire body smashed into a shape smaller than your hand. It's painful and it's humiliating. Your enemy pictures you as a stupid, harmless lizard, then imposes their will on you, overpowering your thoughts until you have to be what they want you to be. I guess it could have been worse. They could have pictured me as a fruit bat, but still. Of course, I felt grateful to Sadie for saving me, but I also felt like a complete loser. It was bad enough that I'd embarrassed myself on the basketball court with a troop of baboons, but I'd also totally failed in battle. Maybe I'd done okay with Leroy, the airport monster, but faced with a couple of magicians, even clay ones, I got turned into a reptile in the first 2 seconds. How would I stand a chance against Set? I was shaken out of those thoughts when we emerged from the portal, because we were definitely not in Thoth's office. In front of us loomed a life-size glass and metal pyramid, almost as big as the ones at Giza. The skyline of downtown Memphis rose up in the distance. At our backs were the banks of the Mississippi River. The sun was setting, turning the river and the pyramid to gold. On the pyramid's front steps, next to a 20-foot-tall pharaoh statue labelled Ramesses the Great, Thoth had set out a picnic with barbecued ribs and brisket, bread and pickles, the works. He was playing his guitar with a portable amp. Khufu stood nearby, covering his ears. Oh, good. Thoth strummed a chord that sounded like the death cry of a sick donkey. You lived. I stared up at the pyramid in amazement. Where did this come from? You didn't just build it, did you? I remembered my bar trip to Set's Red Pyramid and suddenly pictured gods building monuments all over the US. Thoth chuckled. I didn't have to build it. The people of Memphis did that. Humans never really forget Egypt. You know, every time they build a city on the banks of a river, they remember their heritage, buried deep in their subconscious. This is the Pyramid Arena, 6th largest pyramid in the world. It used to be a sports arena for, what is that game you like, Khufu? Khufu said indignantly, and I swear he gave me a dirty look. Yes, basketball, Thoth said, but the arena fell on hard times. It's been abandoned for years. Well, no longer. I'm moving in. You do have the ankh. For a moment I wondered if it had been such a good idea helping Thoth, but we needed him. I tossed him the necklace. Excellent, he said. An ankh from the tomb of Elvis. Powerful magic. Sadie clenched her fists. We almost died getting that. You tricked us. Not a trick, he insisted. A test. Those things, Sadie said. The Shapti.